Hey, my name is Anisha Patel, and I'm obsessed with all things career development. Whether that's navigating your professional journey, gaining clarity, or building the confidence to reach your goals, I'm here to support you in crafting your roadmap to success. I've grown a podcast that has reached thousands of people across the globe. I'm growing an online business, and I'm stepping outside of my 9-to-5 to build a career of my dreams. I've walked the path of transformation myself, and now I'm here to share insights, strategies, and stories to help you carve out a career that you love, or even a podcast you've been dreaming of creating, but you've not taken the leap to start yet. If you want to connect with me in between podcast episodes, I share my personal career insights and behind the scenes stories with my newsletter community, which you can join using the link in the show notes. This is the Pharmacist Diaries podcast. Well, hello there. Welcome to Pharmacist Diaries, guys. I am so excited to be here tonight. We are now on episode 3 of my non-traditional pharmacy career series. So episodes 1 and 2 were absolutely incredible. We explored roles in both clinical development and also an amazing role in health tech, which was really exciting and very inspiring. Honestly, I've learnt so much about the non-traditional pathway already, and it's giving me a little bit of temptation to switch from being a hospital pharmacist into other paths. And I'm actually quite excited about that. That makes me really happy because it means that I'm growing and I'm evolving and I'm actually exploring what other options are available to me. So this podcast isn't just about me hosting, it's also about me learning and evolving in my own career story. So that's really cool. But before we dive into today, I really want to give another shout out to my business BFF, Jamie Wilkie. She's the one who inspired me to start this entire series in the first place. It was her newsletters on non-traditional pharmacy roles that have been incredibly amazing. And if you haven't checked them out already, I highly recommend that you connect with her on LinkedIn. And she writes a weekly newsletter called Love My PharmD, so go and check those out. Now, on today's episode, I'm really excited because I just want to make you think, like, have you ever thought about catchy drug commercials or adverts and kind of like really sleek medication campaigns that you might see on TV, online? Think about the fact that a pharmacist could be behind one of those campaigns, and I'm really, really excited that you'll be able to actually meet one tonight, and he's one of us. It's really exciting that he's gone into medical communications, and I was quite intrigued that when I posted about medical communications and roles that pharmacists could do on LinkedIn in the last couple of weeks, a lot of people have turned around and said, like, I didn't even know pharmacists could even do this. So we're really lucky to be joined tonight by Dr. Steve Aluoch, who's a PharmD in the US. He made the leap into medical communications. It's kind of a world where science meets creativity, where you look at dense clinical data and how it gets transformed into stories that potentially doctors, patients, and even TV audiences can actually connect with. So that's really exciting. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. And if you've ever thought about pivoting away from, pill trays or medication trays and maybe insurance rejections, and you want to really try and use that creativity, make an impact, looking at flexibility in your role and making more money, when we talk about compensation, then maybe stick around to tonight's episode because Steve is going to highlight so many incredible things. So yeah, let's dive into this and let's jump into tonight's episode. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Anisha.
I'm
Thanks for
so
having me.
You're so welcome. I am so excited to have you tonight. I find Sundays are really hard for me. This is so off topic for people who are watching or tuning in live. Sundays is, it's my weekend time. It's my family time. Today I took children to the zoo and we had this entire day out, and then suddenly I have to get into like Pharmacist Diaries mode. And I was saying to my husband, like, I've totally chosen the wrong day to go live, but this is the best time for everybody. Everyone who's currently working in a 9-to-5 is more than likely available, and it hits multiple time zones in terms of being able to reach as big an audience as possible. So I'm actually willing to make that sacrifice when it comes to rushing to put my kids to bed and making sure that I join my live tonight. So yeah, welcome Steve, and let's dive into this and tell us a little bit about yourself and your initial pharmacy journey, and then how you made that pivot into medical communications.
Alrighty. Well, about me, medcom guy, I've been in the pharma space 8 years now. I started like pre-pharmacy school, and I used to just write. I started off writing poetry. Then from there, I did some papers for nurses in undergrad, then post undergrad. While I was, I had like a surgery, and I was looking for gigs online to kind of help with finances due to not being able to work full time because I was at home. And I stumbled across like medical writing, and I was like, what is that? So I just did some digging, looked at the, I guess, requirements that they had, and not all of them required a PharmD. Majority of them did require like just a science background. So I connected with one of the nurses that I knew that was working at a doctor's office in Sharon, then Sharon. It's been a while. But we connected, and I was able to start doing like some brochures, and then from there, just kept on looking for gigs, and I was able to land my first one and never look back. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I believe that you also have worked in like retail pharmacy. Did you initially start working at CVS when you were first qualified as a PharmD?
No, so I started off as a technician at Rite Aid and at a hospital. So right after, from there, I went to like hospital. Then I went to pharmacy school, just did like the regular rotations at the pharmacy. And post pharmacy school, I did like the graduate internship position or intern position. And then like I guess when it was about time to convert to like a pharmacist, I just pivoted and like went freelancing. So I didn't really work as a pharmacist.
Okay, cool. So that's really interesting and also really bold. I love that. Because you didn't follow the traditional pathway as a newly qualified pharmacist, and you went, boom, I'm doing this. I'm doing something different, and I'm doing it now, and I'm not going to wait. What was kind of going through your mind? Because I think, and we've talked about this previously before going live, is that we go into pharmacy school and we are, this is across, you know, the globe, we're talking about across different countries, and it seems like a lot of people I have conversations with say the same, is that when you go to pharmacy school, you tend to be advised on the very traditional roles when it comes to qualifications. So you start off in a retail or community pharmacy, or you might go into a hospital. Here in the UK, you can also start working now as a GP practice pharmacist. So you're working in
Mhm.
primary care. So when you were going through the PharmD, did you not feel compelled to make that initial kind of like traditional role? Did you feel bad leaving and just doing something completely different? What were your thought processes at the time?
During pharmacy school, when I went to pharmacy school, actually, my end goal was to be like a director of pharmacy. So I had a plan like I'll go do my MBA, do my PharmD. After that, I'll chase that dream. But I went home 2019, spoke with my grandma, and she was like, I know you're gonna be a doctor, but like, don't forget your talents. Like, your talents will make more money for you than your degree will, or whatever." I came back, thought about it. Then I was like, okay, I'm already writing as a medical writer. Even though it wasn't full time when I was in school, I used to just like take bus to disappear and go do like writing. But after looking like the trajectory, not like the regular job roles what we're paying, but like I think it's called Career Bureau or the Bureau of Statistics, the way you can go like put the name of the role you're trying to take on and see the trajectory, maybe like 5, 10 years from now, what that looks like. And I was like, it looks pretty good. It looks like it's going to be pretty stable. And then from there, I think like my third year right before rotations, I just decided I'm gonna do that. Like I'll do like medical writing in that space and then like go up that trajectory and see how things go. Because at the end of the day, my goal was always to own like kind of my own business. But I never. thought like when I was going to pharmacy school, like that's where I'll end up. Yeah.
Sweet. So, a lot of people who might be watching this podcast today are in a traditional role or they're currently students
Mm-hmm.
and they are thinking about making this pivot. So, take us back to when you qualified as a pharmacist and
Mm-hmm.
what was it like to actually look for jobs? Where do you look for them? How do you position yourself as someone who could apply for a job in medical communications?
Okay. So my journey was a little different because by the time I was looking for like a medical writer role, I already had like ample of experience, enough samples like to showcase, and then I'd also made a few connections. So I had a few references, but I didn't have like a full-time role. They were all like freelance projects or contract based. But if I were to go back, or if I was in that position today, trying to break into the space without any experience, no connections, one of the things that I'll use will be so like here in the States, when you're in pharmacy school, we do things called journal club, whereby basically you get like say a disease state and things of that nature, and then you kind of break it down and then write in paper, like in a slide deck or a PowerPoint, as we call it in school. In pharma, they call it slide decks. And then I'll also do what is it called? So, example, when you do soaps, I'll take the soap and turn it into like a story instead of just having the regular patient history, the disease states that the comorbidities that they have and all that. I'll take that and break it down to a story because in pharma everything is about a story. And then any other paper that I've ever written on in school, I'll just take that and instead of making it too, I guess, project based for the class, make it project based like I'm trying to give someone in a pharma space or like a pharmacist out there in the pharma industry to read it. Because what happens is in pharmacy school, we write with structure. Everything is about structure. Pharma also has its own structure. So learning pharma structure first, then translating that content to the pharma structure makes more sense. And just to backtrack real quick, I do help people break into like the medical writing space, and I've done that. And literally, what I just said is what I told them to do. Let me see past projects that you've done. Then let's take these past projects and dissect them into deliverables that are in a space. So that's what I'll do. I'll just take the projects that I've worked on and expand on them a little bit and then use those to pitch. So, like when you pitch, you'll say, hey, I'm Dr. Patel, I just graduated, but been doing medical writing for the last 2 years or 3 years because literally pharmacy school the work that we do is medical writing. It's just not medical writing that's niched. Like it's not medical communications. It's not regulatory writing. It's not CME. Like it's all of them in one bunch. So you need to be able to separate it or separate the niches or kind of break it down. Then that way it resonates with whoever you're pitching to. So that's what I'll do if I'm trying to break in today.
Sweet. And this is kind of from the perspective of storytelling in an interview and being able to give examples. So when people
Mm-hmm.
are asked specific questions in the interview stage, or even, I guess, in an application where you're having to give examples of things that you've done or experiences that you've had or certain skills that you've got,
Mm-hmm.
you're sort of using that sort of transferable skill set and leveraging that, but in just a different way. Is that where you're coming from?
Yes. But one of the things that is very important to note, I'll say, is whenever you're trying to pitch to any entity to break into the industry, you have to have the right materials. So, example, you can't pitch to an oncology based company with just, say, cardiology stuff or derma stuff. Like, you have to speak their language because at the end of the day, there's a lot of gatekeeping that has started going on in the medical writing space or the medical communication space as a whole, even CME, reg writing, it doesn't matter which. When it comes to writing, there's a lot of gatekeeping. And so what they'll do is if you don't give them content that aligns with what they're currently working on or what they I guess in general, what they do, they're going to give you a medical writing test. And because most likely what they give you doesn't align with what you have been doing, you're not going to be able to crack that code because you don't know what they're looking for.
Oh, that's quite tough. That's kind of
Yeah.
scary, actually. Medical writing test. I wouldn't do good at that, I think. um, if it was me and I was
Hmm.
trying to crack into this new space, like how many months or years would you say that I would really need to kind of train myself to think like these companies and prepare myself to apply and potentially get that interview?
I would say yes. I'd actually say like a month or two is good enough. One, because you already have the PharmD, so like you already have the scientific knowledge or like the pharmaceutical background that is needed in order to understand and dissect the data and the content. But you're still thinking as, I guess, as a pharmacy student and not even a clinician, even though you've just finished school. And so trying to understand the lingo, because pharma speaks in acronyms a lot in interviews. So like that's like step one. You need to understand the lingo and the acronyms a little bit. That way, when you're in an interview and they say something in acronyms or abbreviations, you know exactly what that means. Because
Mm,
if I'm talking to you and I say something in an acronym, and you'll be like your facial expression is going to change, and it gives me like, yeah, they didn't catch that or they don't know what that is. And so I wouldn't say 2 years or anything. I mean, a year or so, like long amount of months. I would say like if you give it genuinely, if you don't have any samples, like you just today you graduated, you learned about it today, you are interested and you want to break into it. If you give it like a good 3 months, depending on the niche that you're trying to break into, you can do it. But disclaimer, regulatory writing, for example, is very hard to break into. So that will probably take you more than 3 months. But like something like medical communications or like which usually covers like SciMed, med affairs, all that you can break into in 3 months. I've done reg, but the person had like a residency for a year. So it all depends. But I'll say like 3 months, if you have no experience at all, is like good enough because all you need to do is like learn the lingo, have create some samples, that align with the companies that you're trying to break into, and then give it a shot. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. And from your perspective, you went into it freelance and you worked on
Hmm.
projects. How did that feel coming out of pharmacy school with probably quite a lot of debt and then not having a permanent role where you've got that security and that safety of a traditional sort of like six-figure pharmacy job when you first qualify and being able to pay off all your student debt?
I think, okay, so like personally for me, when I left pharmacy school, like the debt wasn't even a thing in my head. Like I need to be paying my debt, or like I know I need to be paying my debt, right? Like when I left pharmacy school, I know that's like at the head back of your brain. But the thing was, I focused on more what I could control versus what I can't control. Like you have debt. Whether what you do about that, that's on you. But you have it. You can't really control that because it's done. But looking at the trajectory of the space, because like when I finished pharmacy school, COVID was still in the air a little bit, right? And that's when like medical writing was almost we can say it was at its peak. Like I was booked. The whole like 2022, 2023, I was booked. Even like end of 2021, I was booked. And the thing is, compared to now and then, like yes, jobs have died down, contracts have died down. But like personally, for me, I didn't focus on the debt. I just focused on the goal, what I was trying to achieve financially in that or those 2 quarters. And then I just went for that. Then at the end, I sat down, analyzed, and I'm like, okay, if I made this much money and I only work this much time, I'm pretty sure I can crack about this much, if I give it this much time. And so that's what I focused on. And after that, I was like, it looks like it's going to work out. So, but it was
Sweet.
scary because the only good thing is like, that is the only debt I had. I didn't really have any other debt. So I got a car for I got a car as a graduation gift. and I didn't have any other debt. So I just focused on what I needed to do.
Yeah, I like that perspective. It can be quite overwhelming for people who leave pharmacy school with, you know, $150,000, $200,000 worth of debt. It feels quite overwhelming.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I love your mindset there. You were just like, I'm not in control of that now. That's done. I needed to get the degree. I knew that I would have to spend X amount of dollars to get it done, and I need to move forward with my life. And I don't know if a lot of people have that mindset. That's awesome, and really incredible that you didn't sort of overwhelm yourself with the need for security and like a permanent position in
Hmm.
order to have that regular safety to keep paying off your your student debt. I mean, now personally, like I have a house, I've got a mortgage, I've got two kids, so obviously I have a family to look after. So I have a lot of responsibility,
Hmm.
and I shifted from a permanent, full-time role as a pharmacist into what in the US you would call kind of per diem work, or here we call it a locum pharmacist. We get paid per hour.
Hmm.
And it's given me the flexibility as a parent, which I'm absolutely loving because I can spend more time at home and be there for my children when I need to be. But at the same time, it's allowing me to build on Pharmacist Diaries and build this business and be able to have the flexibility to fly to Germany and do amazing things with big pharma companies, like creating video content, which I never dreamed that I would be doing. But this podcast has really opened up so many opportunities for me that have blown me away. But I think for a lot of people, that mindset shift is quite difficult to overcome. Even entrepreneurship, the instability and the lack of control as to how much income that you're going to generate every month when you do have big overheads and you've got families to look after and mortgages to pay and car payments, etc., and student debt, it can be quite overwhelming. So I love that your mindset was kind of free of that and allowed you to kind of just step into a whole bunch of projects, and you had the confidence that, yeah, I'm going to get the work, it's clearly available, and boom, I'm going to do it. um, I think from the perspective of people stepping into like medical communications now, if they're currently in a traditional role,
Hmm.
are there opportunities for them to get projects or, you know, little bits of freelance work, if you want to call it, in the meantime, so they can get a taste of whether or not they actually really like it? Because that's kind of my question is to you. How did you know that you were truly going to love it? And how does someone else know that they're going to love it? What is it about the job that you do that the skill of being a pharmacist is kind of transferred into that job and gives you that confidence to say, like, I wake up happy doing the role that I do every day? Because other people don't really know that much about medical communications.
Hmm. Okay, so aside from the pharmacy side of things, I'll say, as I said earlier, I was already doing poetry, like I'm a creative by nature. So that always like kind of played a big or a major part into that. But one of the things that I always love about the space is every other day is different. Even if I was working on a different project today I could get a client and they say, "Oh, let's stop whatever we're doing yesterday. We kind of changing trajectory. Let's work on something new," right? And that's something that I've always loved. And also, they trust your clinical judgment as a pharmacist, because some of them don't have any science background at all. It just depends on whatever project you're working on. But what makes me love the space is the variety of like the things that you can do. Literally scripts, infographics, slide decks. Like I could do something that's going to be shown at ESIP. I've done projects for things like ECMID, like it just depends. But I didn't want a job whereby everything just felt like the same every day. Like when you're a technician, like I'll go to work, I'll count the pills, or if you're a pharmacist, I'll do ABCD. Like, no, every day is different, even if it's still the same job, but there's always variety that makes it more, I guess, enjoyable. So I've always loved that, and from a pharmacist standpoint, being able to dissect the data and then using the creative mind to present it differently than everyone else is thinking, it's a plus because sometimes they'll take your idea and go with it. Sometimes they'll take your idea and tweak parts of it, but you never feel like you are alone. It's always a team, even though it's not like we are not all in the same place at the same time. So I'll just say, for me, being a creative, I love thinking differently, trying new things. And I felt like in the medical communication space, especially the creative side of things, you have so much freedom versus if you have something like let's say if you're doing like the medical communications, but like mostly med affairs or like side publications, there's not really wiggle room like when it comes to publications. Like pubs is pubs. This is the content, this is the data, put in paper, let's submit, versus if you're doing like example, I did an advert for Sogroya and Noritoffree, like those ones, when you create things like that, you play with so many elements, like 2D, 3D, trying to present things differently. So you have so much wiggle room with things like that. And I enjoyed that, So I also, to say all that, I say all that to say, at the bottom of all of that, you need to love writing. Like you're not going to survive if you don't like writing, at least in the entry level, because you do a lot of writing. And as you go up, you do less writing. But if there ever arises a situation whereby they need someone to write, you got to be able to jump in. So I get a lot of people want to break into the space, but they don't like writing, like hand in hand. You got to like writing. So, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And how much do you use AI in your role? Now I'm getting curious.
Okay, so great question, great question. So before I answer that question, I want to give a transparent outlook of the current space. Everybody or majority of people are like not pro AI right now. But the truth of the matter remains, every entity, whether it's AstraZeneca, Sanofi, AbbVie, Moderna, like it doesn't matter which entity it is, they're using AI. Like even Pfizer, they have like an internal enterprise AI that they use that cranks out the data. And one of the things that they tell all contractors and all clients that they work with is make sure you're using AI. Why? Because now they're also trying to save money. So, for example, there's these things that we have that are called like summaries, literature summaries that we do. And they'll tell you first, use AI to create the first draft. Then now it's called human in a loop, whereby you bring a human, a medical writer, whoever, to fact check that content and make sure it is actually accurate. Why? That takes the work from maybe 3-4 hours. So the output being in like under 30 minutes, and then you can spend 1 hour since you already read the paper to fact check it. You see. So that's just the truth of the matter is everybody in the space is currently using AI. How much do I use AI in my space? 60%, roughly. So that comes usually not to create the content per se, but I'll say like ideation. So if I have an idea, I'll run it through AI, tell exactly how I'm thinking, like almost like a brain dump. So I'll do the brain dump, and then I'll let it flesh out my idea. Then after that, I'll tell it to run 2 more ideas that can fit that same narrative. Then from there, create the content. You see, then now I have, let's say, 3 ideas that I can pitch to the client or whatever the project is, and they can look at it and they'll be like, I like this. Okay, this 2 looks good, but let's take half of the first part and half of the second part and combine that, So I use it like at least 60% of the work that I do, I use AI. And everybody in the space also use AI. And Usually when you have meetings, someone will just be like, so this part I used AI to create. As long as you give that disclaimer, it's okay. Yeah. Because they tell you to do it.
I use AI all the time. All the time.
Hmm.
All the time in so many different spaces. And I'm not talking just about in pharmacy. I'm talking about as a podcaster. I use it
I do that.
all the time.
Hmm.
And people know this because when I work full time and I have two kids and I try and, juggle this podcast and my business, like I'm a busy human being. And AI has helped me become so much more efficient in terms of time saving on
Hmm.
things that I would do myself. And let me give you a good example. When I record a podcast episode, way back when, like multiple years ago, I would record the episode with my guests and it was audio. I would then, in my brain, summarize the information that was discussed and then type out an introduction that I would then record after the fact. That, hey guys, welcome to Pharmacist Diaries. This is my guest. This is what we talk about in this podcast episode. This is why you're going to like it, blah, blah, blah. I switched from an efficiency point of view to do the introduction live when I'm with my guest because I became the bottleneck where my husband would be waiting for me to like do the introduction before he could edit the full episode and get it released. But now I can record a podcast episode and I can download the transcript of the discussion and use that transcript, which is the exact words that have come from this podcast episode, the style, the tone, the exact language that we have used during the episode. And I can ask AI to then create the show notes for me and the description for YouTube
Hmm.
and to optimize the information to make sure that it's enhanced for SEO so people can search for it. So if people are searching for certain key terms in YouTube and Google, my content is going to come up faster, which there's no way I would have been able to do it as efficiently as I do. I was doing it all manually. And in fact, it was a really good learning opportunity, again, because I was practicing writing, I was practicing summarizing information, I was practicing my own style as to what I would want in my show notes and how much information I wanted to give, how much was factual information about the guest versus, giving people exact bullet points on what they would learn on each episode.
Hmm.
And then I can turn quite a lot of that content into social media posts. I can turn it into a blog. I can turn it into a newsletter that I send out to my email community. Now, my email list receives emails from me every week, and the foundation of that email comes from AI. But then, like you said, I go through it sentence by sentence and put my own style to it. But now there are really efficient ways of actually plugging in your own written content into AI and saying, this is my writing style, this is how I speak, this is how I communicate. Can
Hmm.
you help me to create a newsletter that sounds like me? And
Hmm.
again, it's beautiful. It does so much good stuff for me. But I also use it for holidays. I use it to research holidays. I'm going on this amazing trip to Thailand at the end of the year. I'm taking a whole month off, Steve. I'm taking my kids to Thailand for an entire month. And I have been using AI to research different locations, what are family friendly areas, what can kids of these two age ranges do in these locations, and really like getting a deep dive into what hotels or Airbnbs that we can stay at. And I've utilized it really efficiently. Now, in the hospital, 99% of my colleagues would never touch ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other apps. In fact, people have come up to me and said, like, can you teach me? Like, how do I use it to even, I don't know, get a recipe for food?
Hmm.
Um, so it's really useful to know that you're in a role which is so innovative and so creative, where you get to do your own thing, but you also get to become more efficient and effective with the use of new apps and new technology that's coming out too.
Yeah, the AI is definitely a game changer. Um, like as I said earlier, everyone is using it. The only difference or the only gap that I feel exists at the moment is most of these entities have like an enterprise AI to use, but they don't train their employees how to use it. So they're still not necessarily seeing the ROI on that. But that is something I tell any new writer, like you need to understand prompt engineering very well because it all boils down to the prompt at the end of the day. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Whatever you plug in is training ChatGPT to figure out what's coming out of that thing,
mhm,
um, which is interesting. I want to make, or just give a reminder to people who are watching that you've got the opportunity to send in questions. So make sure that you send in questions for Steve because we have a live Q&A at the end of this episode. So if there's anything that I'm not including in today's episode, you have the opportunity to take control. And so send us some messages and let us know what questions you have. I kind of want to dive into compensation and
mhm,
looking at how medical communications is different to a traditional pharmacy role in terms of compensation, flexibility, work life balance. What are the benefits that you would be offered that is different to working in a retail pharmacy or a hospital pharmacy?
um, I'll just answer them how they come. So one of the things that I would say is like the lifestyle or life work balance. So one of the things that I love about this space is that I'm not, although I kind of work 9 to 5, technically, usually on paper, you know, I don't really do a 9 to 5. I work whatever hours I need to work to get the job done. Let's put it like that. So I can be on my computer like from 9 p.m. to like midnight doing something because I'm not going to be available in the morning, something of that nature. Yeah. But I love the flexibility in that if I need to go to a doctor's appointment or need to run an errand during a day, I can literally go about my day, 2, 3 hours, let the team know, like, hey, I'm not going to be available, whatever the case might be, and come back and then just pick up from where I left. As long as your job is done, it's done. Versus if I was like in the hospital or a community pharmacy, I mean, once you clock in, you're clocked in. You're not leaving. And if I do need to run an errand, I need to take the day off. Versus I don't take days off. Like I just go do my thing, come back, pick up where I left. If I need to take a day off, it's literally my day off. Like I have something planned, I'll go about my business, do that. But one of the beauty, like when I contracted a lot, one of the beauty was instead of saying I'm taking the day off because I'm contracted, I usually just told them I'm not available today, like during the 9 to 5, but I'll work on the project and it will still be ready whenever you needed it to be ready. So I'll still get my pay, take time off, and not miss out on anything. Versus regular 9 to 5, if you take off a day and let's say you don't have what is it called, PTO, that's money lost. But if you're salaried, of course, most of all are salaried. If you're working full time, you still get paid, but you have used your PTO. You see, so I get the flexibility of doing what I need to do without using my PTO, if that makes sense. So that's one. As far as life work balance goes, as far as pay, you just say pay, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as far as pay, it depends. One of the things that I try to let a lot of pharmacists know is definitely, let's say if you've been a pharmacist like 10 years or something, of course, maybe if you're working community or hospital, you have almost probably reached your cap or something of that nature. So like your earning is a little higher. And so if you're going to change career paths and go like medcoms or CME, whatever the case might be, you're definitely going to get a pay cut. But on the opposite end of that is that it might be just for a year. Because Um, there's bonuses. Of course, there's something called merit. Every company is different that they give every year. And then depending on the company again, whenever you get promoted, like you get a good chunk of money. But to kind of get back, let's say if I was a pharmacist today and I was making like 160K, right? And I wanted to break into medcom. So I'll go for like a senior medical writer position if writing was my thing. If it's not, I'll shoot for associate scientific director or like associate medical director role because in those roles, I won't necessarily write a lot because it's more senior, but I'll be able to review all the content that people are working on and everything that we're working on the company goes kind of go through me as a final check. And then from there, after working like a year or two, I'll change um I'll change companies, like look for different kind of job. And the thing is, I think right now the best for associate medical director is probably between 90 to 135. If 90 on the low end if you're new, like a new grad or something like that, and then high end if you have a few years of experience. And then also like associate scientific director, usually like the 120 range, 115, 120, 135. And then after working that, if I'm going to a new entity, I'm definitely going to crack 150. Then again, I'm back exactly where I left, doing something that is more offers more work-life balance, more less stress and like more growth opportunities because usually in the pharmacy, like especially if you're working in the community or in a hospital, there are different roles that you can do and many specialties that you can do. But if you're a community, you'll be a pharmacist, pharmacy manager, or staff pharmacist or whatever. And then the next one from there is usually like district, all these other roles that is very hard to come by. And I feel like the time a lot of people put in a pharmacy space, especially retail, compared to like the amount of time I put in the medical space, like the ROI is not worth it. Yeah. So I'll say that as far as like pay because a lot of people look at breaking into a new role as they're underpaying me, But this goes if you work retail 2 years and you go to work hospital, they always feel like you have 1 year working experience in the hospital, because you haven't been working in the hospital. It's the same thing. You're coming to a new space. You have not done any work in this space, and so you're more like a baby doing the baby steps. Once you kind of start walking, then you know your way around things. So that's what I'll say as far as like pay and all that. But the pay range is like wild. For I can say anywhere like the the least I've seen when I'm trying to help people break into the space like was an associate medical writer role for like 75K, which I told them not to take because I felt like it was really lowballing them for some weird reason. And the highest I've helped someone land a job was like 105 for a senior medical writer. And then now, of course, as you go up to like the more senior roles and stuff like that, you can easily crack like 180, 200K, But again, it depends on what someone wants to do. If they want to go up the ladder or if they just want to maintain a happy medium, because that's also an option. If promotion comes, they'll ask you, do you want to take on the next role or do you want to stay in your role and just get an increase? Some people don't want to go on those managerial roles because then it requires you to do more and you don't feel well compensated. So,
Fair play.
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what the different roles, like what are the responsibilities and what do you actually have to do in those roles? Because I think that's something that people probably don't really have that much understanding of,
Mhm,
is they get what they need to do in, a graduate level role, or they're new to medical writing. That seems like it makes sense.
mhm.
But what does career progression truly look like? What do those responsibilities look like, and how does it evolve?
Okay. So in the medcom space, It's kind of like a bridge between two spaces. So like the medical director direction or the scientific director direction. Um, so the scientific director side is usually mostly like med affairs and stuff, but you'll start either as an associate medical writer or as an scientific associate, I think it's called by other companies. But let's just use the medical writer terminology. So you start like an associate medical writer, which is very rare, by the way. Most companies just want to put you in the medical writer bucket. So we'll start a medical writer, anywhere from 80 to like 100K, depending on the company. Sometimes this is not like necessarily based on experience, but just the company and their brand as far as like compensation goes. So if you work for a more smaller entity like an agency, of course they're gonna start you on the lower end because agencies get contracts from big pharma, so the AbbVies, the Sanofi's, etc., J&J. And so if you work for, let's say, J&J, they might start you at 95 or something like that, because they have a big financial band that they can spend. So you do like medical writer, then usually after medical writer, um, every entity is different. Also, like at the rate at which they promote people, some agencies do it every 6 months, every year. Some more big pharma companies do it after a year or two. So let's say you'll go medical writer, 1 year or 2 years, you get a promotion, and then you go to like senior medical writer, and then from there you do either associate scientific director, and then you'll do scientific director, and then now just keep going up that band, right? But as an entry level medical writer, you do a lot of writing. That's what I was saying. Like none of these roles you're not going to write. All these roles you write. So, and as an associate medical writer or as a medical writer, you're going to do a lot of writing. And so you have to be comfortable with all kinds of writing that is done in the spaces. So what does that look like? Let's say infographics. So like being able to take data from a publication and turn that into an infographic based on the client's needs or client ask. Be able to create things like a scientific platform, things like leave behinds, which are basically those little brochures or leaflets that you find at the doctor's office. Like let's say if you have like a dermatology condition, like a skin disease, whatever, they give you like this brochure, like this is your condition, this is how you should take care of it when you go home, or create storyboards, which is basically the skeleton before we finalize like a video, whether it's an ad, whether it's like a MOA video, things of that nature. So you can create so many deliverables, but you need to be comfortable in writing that. And so as a medical writer, literally that is your day to day, every day, majority of the majority of the time you spend alone. And then the time you spend with the team are meetings with clients, trying to understand the ask, because sometimes the people on the calls are not don't have a science background or a scientific background, and the data or the content that they're supposed to pass along is definitely going to be dropped, and you don't want that. And then you also spend time with internal teams internally, going through like the project brief and the timelines and when stuff is due, and just catch up to review content. And then of course reporting to whoever you need to report to in case there's any questions you have or they have. So I'll say at least 80% of your time, 70 to 80 is spent writing, but it's usually not like the same thing. It's usually different things. So there's like a variety. So kind of gives it a balance so you don't get bored. Then senior medical writer, almost the same, but high level writing, you do writing, but not a lot. So a senior medical writer can check a medical writer's work depending on the company and how much trust they have in your work. And then like an associate scientific director, usually you start to own accounts. So even as medical writers, you own accounts, but not like you own them. So let's say if I'm working on 3 indications, so let's say something like Cimzia, then I have something like Kimraya, then there's like the new drug Blue Jepper. So let's say I'll have three accounts that I'm writing on, right? But the associate scientific director is going to be probably the person overseeing those accounts. So all the work that I do, they get to review that, right? And then a scientific director will probably see 2 to 3 medical writers. So whatever three accounts I have, 2 accounts they have, and 1 account someone new has. So like let's say like 6 indications, they'll be overseeing that. So everything that we write, they get to review before it goes out, you know. So the higher you go, less writing, more, I guess, managerial operations, kind of day to day, just making sure things are all buttoned up before they go to the client. But as far as like how fast you can go up that ladder, it depends. I always tell people like, um, at this rate, there's no job loyalty. I mean, that's just the truth because tomorrow you'll wake up and they tell you, oh, your company is downsized, your position has been eliminated, you know. So you do your due diligence when you're there. Like I always tell people, when you're employed with someone, take the time, like an experience, you know, like I'm traveling, I've paid my flight, I'm here to enjoy the moment. Like go full blown with it, enjoy the time, but learn as much as you can. That way, if you are trying to job hop to another entity, when they ask you, like you know it. Like one of the reasons I was always booked is I've worked with so many entities. I've dabbled in so many different assets or deliverables, you know. And so the space is funny because if I interview you and I'm looking for someone who does scientific platforms or ad boards, and you tell me, I haven't done those, off the bat, I'm like, that's not the person I want. Because if you're contracting, the reason why most people try to hire you in those bursts of months, maybe someone is on maternity leave. Maybe someone got into an accident and they can't be working for the next 3, 4 months. They need someone to fill that gap immediately, hit the ground running without them feeling like you're missing a beat. You see, so the more deliverables and assets you work on, it makes you well rounded. And one advice I give every writer is learn to be a good medical editor, because a good writer is a good medical editor, but also never be afraid to learn what everybody on the team does. Disclaimer, I'm not saying learn everything that everyone on the team does so you can do them and show people that you can do. Learn everything that everyone on the team does. That way, when you go to interview somewhere else, you can speak to those roles, because at the end of the day, when they hire you, you're not going to be working by yourself. You're working with a team, and you need to be able to understand what other team members do. That way, when you speak to that in an interview and they ask you, how do you work with other team members? You can say, so for project management of PM, I usually make sure like I communicate when they send a project. I leave a note on Jira, which is like a tracking platform. If I need to, for accounts, I communicate with them like, this is what I have. What did the client say? Are we tracking correctly? What is the timeline? Things of that nature. That way, it just makes you a well-rounded candidate and kind of makes you proactive, even if you're not going to do that in real life. But at least you can speak to it. So,
Steve, you're making me want to do the job now. This just keeps happening to me. Every time I'm interviewing someone, I'm like, I can do that. I could do that. It makes me excited. The funny thing for me is that when you talk about creating adverts, especially when they're in video format, I'm on the other end delivering the script and delivering exactly how the medical communications is written. And I've always, when I read those scripts and I am delivering that when I'm in Germany and I'm trying to think of the patient's perspective when it's my tone and my style and how I communicate, I have always thought, like, who's writing these and how much experience do they have in understanding what a patient would need to know? And I've made a few amendments of the scripts, and it just comes really naturally to me because I'm like, oh, that's not going to be very useful for a patient because of X, Y, and Z. And we should add this information in because actually that's going to be better for a pharmacist to understand, because you're delivering this information to community pharmacies around what wound care products that we've got available and why you would use certain ones. So it's really interesting that now I'm thinking about that role, but from my perspective as the person who delivers the content. But the more you speak, the more intriguing it is as to how perfectly positioned we are as pharmacists to go into this job. When you look at the basic skill set of someone who is learning to be a pharmacist as a student, and you're
Mhm.
newly qualified or even super qualified like me, everything that I think of in terms of skill set is coming up from communication, like the ability to write information that goes to different audiences. Like if you're working in a hospital, you need to know how to deliver specific information to a patient or a parent or a nurse or a
Mhm.
doctor, or write specific content that goes to someone's primary care provider, which is different to how you might deliver information when you're on call and you've got 25 calls waiting for you, and you need to be assertive and you need to take ownership for your decisions. You have to be a good leader. You have to work in a team. You have to be able to pay attention to detail. I mean, everything that I think about as a pharmacist transfers very directly to the role of a medical writer in the way that you're describing it, which is it's freaking brilliant. It's perfect for us. If we're looking for a role that allows us to be creative and innovative, but still have a lot of fun, still have a lot of control, you're still able to manage your time probably a lot better than when you're in an acute situation in an inpatient pharmacy, like just machining through
Mhm.
prescriptions. This is a different type of vibe, right? You're able to control the amount of time that you spend on different projects, but you also have awareness of how long that you've got to deliver that information, whether the client wants it in 2 days to be turned around, or you've got 3 months to work on the project. You know what you need to do, and you can manage your time really efficiently. You can get really organized. You can project manage. But I love,
Mhm.
as you transition through like different leadership roles, you are still effectively doing a very similar job, but then you're managing more people, you're managing different contracts. And again, a lot of that skill set relates to if you're working as a staff pharmacist in a retail pharmacy or a hospital pharmacy, as you manage more staff, or you're mentoring students, or you're having to take on more team members, and managing everything from their time, their ability to learn. You're giving them feedback all the time as you become a leader, and you're helping them to grow as a medical writer, which is exactly what we do as pharmacists working in our day-to-day traditional roles. Like, don't you agree?
No, fully, fully. Especially like with that mentorship thing. One of the things that I tell everyone, which we were talking about before we got on the call, like having your own voice. When you're writing, example, like when you use AI kind of puts gives you an output, which is like I read items like pictures, and I know like AI wrote that because I've done so much prompt engineering. But at the end of the day, as you're saying earlier, going back in and like putting your own voice kind of throws someone off. They're like, sounds AI, but not really. So they're not really sure where to place it. And like with new writers, a lot of people who review work try to change the writer's voice based on their voice. And I always preach that you shouldn't change their voice. Don't change the item. Hence why I was saying earlier, like you need to be a good medical editor
Mm,
because as you go up the trajectory, you're doing less writing and more feedback. And you need to be able to edit the copy and leave like edit as far as like highlight and leave your comments. That way it's still their voice with your feedback in it. So it's definitely a good thing like to kind of oversee other writers, and also you also learn a thing or two because there are writers who are writing and be like, where have they been?
Yeah.
They should have been here before, you know? So,
Mm. And I love that. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so happy for you because it sounds like you're just really loving it. And the fact that you're now mentoring people, like this is my last question to you, and I really want you to be able to share what you've been doing from an entrepreneur and a business perspective. How are you helping people to step into medical writing, and how can people reach out to you to get support if they've watched this episode and they're intrigued by diving into medical writing? How can they contact you and what do you offer?
okay, so you can just reach me on LinkedIn / my name, Steve Aluoch, like just LinkedIn.in / my name, or just search Steve Aluoch. Um, as far as like what I offer, I do offer coaching as far as in break into like the medcom space or like even CME. I guess just the medical writing space as an umbrella. It doesn't matter the niche, so I usually help with that. Disclaimer, please, if you're gonna come to ask for help, you've got to be able to put in the work. Like I can't do that for you. I'll show you the ropes, but you gotta be able to do that. But anyone who has connected with me will take like I'm pretty much open to helping. Usually, I used to do it for free, but people like to play with your time, so they won't show up. So I started charging because when people pay, they show up. But I help you break into whatever role you want. I usually do them. We just get on a call. I kind of understand your background and things of that sort. See where you're trying, which way you're trying to go. Then I help you do that. So depending on the niche or role, it could be anywhere from 1 to 4 months. But again, that timeline is dependent on how much time or how much work you're willing to put in. So that's one. Um, as far as like entrepreneurship, I'm working on a few things. I'm not ready to share yet, but follow me. I'll be making the post soon. So hopefully hoping to see a new horizon come early next year. Let's just say that. But yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Now let's dive into this awesome Q&A. So, somebody actually wrote a question in a language which I don't understand, but someone else very kindly translated it for us. So that was really fortunate. So the question actually says, which traditional jobs will be the first to disappear due to technology and machine learning, and what new jobs will be created in their place? I think that's quite a tricky question, Steve,
Hmm.
but got an answer for that one?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I will say it all depends on the investment that the respective entities put into machine learning and AI. But right now, one of the things that I'm seeing is most entities are doing away with entry level roles and investing more on more senior roles because AI is doing the work for entry level and the more senior candidates are reviewing that and making sure everything is buttoned up. So that's kind of a tricky question, but is AI coming for your job? I guess to put that in a bucket, yes and no, So learn it, because if you don't learn it, almost try to put it in a bucket of like when computers first came out, nobody wanted to learn. Then those who learned stayed in the job market, and those who didn't learn were left behind. So it's the same thing. Like I listen to a lot of AI news, and I forgot the name of the godfather of AI who just got like I believe a Nobel Prize a few months back, and was it? I think it's this year. But he did kind of capture all the respective things that AI's been able to do so far, and it's not at its peak and where it's heading. And literally, it's mind blowing. So I'll definitely say learn it the best you can. You don't have to be the best whiz at it, but at least learn how to use it. That way, if you're put in that position, you don't fall behind. Yeah.
Awesome. I thought I'd give a quick shout out to Marvelous Anyanwu from Nigeria because she has tuned into the podcast tonight. I love how my podcast is global. It's so exciting that there are people here from all over the world.
Hmm.
And actually, she'll be a few hours ahead of us. So she is up late at night. She's an oncology pharmacist, she says. So thank you so much for joining. Um,
Yeah.
she also had a question saying that
Hmm.
do you have a caveat where you only work with US based individuals who want to get into medical writing?
No, I always believe like all students require the same access to whatever information might be out there. So I've helped pharmacists in Nigeria, by the way. I've worked with a few, um, someone like Amaka or Namaka. I've worked with Grace. I've worked with a few like pharmacist Nigerian writers. So if you have any questions, like I'm a DM away, just send the message and we'll go from there. Yeah.
That's it, Marvelous. Get in there. Message Steve. And now this is going to make you so happy, but it's totally not a question for you. But look at this. My favorite YouTuber,
Nice.
Oscar. Boom. I love you. I'm very excited that I've got a comment live from somebody who says that I am their favorite YouTuber. Thanks, Oscar. So much love for you right now. And yeah, really excited to hear back. But otherwise, there's no other questions tonight. I have absolutely loved having this conversation. I've learned a lot more about medical writing that I didn't really know that much about. So I'm really pleased to have been educated. I think it's a perfect pivot for a lot of pharmacists, whether you're newly qualified or you've got lots of experience and you're looking to do something slightly different.
Mhm.
For me, podcasting has kind of allowed me to be so much more creative and innovative, and having conversations and diving deep into comms effectively and being a good communicator has been really rewarding in ways that I just never imagined would exist for me. So, what I would say is my advice ending this episode is that if you've got even a small amount of inspiration from this episode and it's giving you that, oh, maybe I could do this, that you should genuinely try and explore it, because I think it's a perfect transition if you're in a job that you think you're comfortable, you know what you're doing, you're happy, you're going by your day to day, but actually you're looking to do something more exciting, or you're looking to be challenged, or you're looking to think outside the box, or work with new people that are outside of the traditional pharmacy space, then this is something that you could definitely learn more about. So go and check out Steve on LinkedIn. That's my number one piece of advice. Go and connect with him, check out his content, send him a DM if you have any questions, and yep, send me any questions if you need any help. I'm happy to direct you to the right place. And then also check out Jamie Wilkins, because Jamie is writing a lot about non-traditional careers, so that might be useful for you too. But yeah, Steve, thanks so much for spending the evening with me on my Sunday night.
Thanks, Anita, for having me.
You're
Bye.
absolutely welcome, and I will see you guys soon.